Hello and welcome. Today this plenary session is focusing on immigration and especially on illegal migrants and migrants' deaths in the Mediterranean Sea, but also on those who manage to reach EU borders. So today the question of is a new European asylum system needed in Europe and how to better call the member state to take more action and solidarity to take refugees. That's the debate today with my two guests, two members of the European Parliament, Mrs. Ska Keller, you a member from the Greens. Hello.
Hi.
And Mr. Timothy Kirkhope, you member of the group of European Conservatives and Reformist group. And happy birthday to you. Hello. So, today members of the European Parliament have a big debate with Mr. President of the European Commission, Mr. Jean-Claude Juncker, and also the European President of the Council, Mr. Tusk. So the 28 countries decided to triple the budget of Triton, the border patrol mission, but this is not enough. And it's time for Europe maybe to think about a new European asylum system for better border sharing. What do you think, Mrs. Keller?
Well, absolutely. In order to stop the death in the Mediterranean, we believe we need a humanitarian rescue mission. But of course, as you posed the question, what happens when people come to Europe and ask for asylum is indeed an important one. We have a European asylum system, but it's only based on minimum standards. And we think, as Greens, that this minimum standards need to be raised. But also it's very important that all member states adhere to this minimum standards that we have, because many are even falling under those minimum standards.
But is it, Mr. Kirkhope, so is it a duty for Europe to deal with all these people flying from wars? I mean, it's not a matter of choice, but a matter of duty of the European Union. No?
I think we need to readdress the basic principles behind refugees and asylum applications. The United Nations laid down very clear guidance on this, and we seem over the years to have mixed up the people who genuinely have applications for asylum and meet criteria set by the UN, and those people who simply should be part of an immigration process. And I think on top of that, we do seem to have very variable standards and quality of the way in which people who arrive in Europe are treated and dealt with.
Yeah.
And I think there is some criticism on certain countries in particular for the way in which these standards are applied.
And we can come back on the current system of Dublin II. So a revision of it is needed. So I will remind it what is Dublin II. So it's today in Europe. So when you arrive from a countries in Europe, or today you have to be sent, the refugees have to be sent back to the countries of origin. And today, such as the Mediterranean countries, such as Italy, Greece, Spain. So this is. There is no share, there is big disparities between northern countries and southern countries. So is a revision of Dublin necessary?
It's absolutely necessary. As you say, people have to apply for asylum now in the countries where they first enter the European Union, and that is typically the countries at the border. So some countries are really taking in a lot of asylum seekers, and that is indeed, a responsibility to deal with their asylum claims, whereas others are not doing much or not doing anything. And there we have to rebalance. We need to have more solidarity between the member states, but I would argue also for more solidarity with the refugees, because currently, if you, for example, speak French, you will still have to apply in Italy, or if you have family in, I don't know, in Poland, you will still have to apply in Spain, and that we have to rebalance so that also the needs of the refugees are taken into account.
But the problem is that in some countries, such as the UK, they're not really in favour for a revision of Dublin II.
Well, I mean, first of all, let's get things statistically correct. Whilst it's true that the immediate pressures are on those countries bordering the Mediterranean, currently anyway, ultimately, in terms of the humanitarian approach and the acceptance of refugees, if you take a look at countries much further north, like the UK, like Germany, over the years, I think that both those countries and others have actually contributed very largely, but they've done it on a voluntary basis. I think the problem we now have is that everybody wants to put some kind of almost legal obligations in terms of the division of responsibilities. That does not actually make sense, nor does it actually stack up in terms of the morality, which should be to make sure that people who seek asylum and have genuine reason to be granted it are in countries which are actually suited to them, rather than just simply being allocated a country. I mean, that is really, in my view, difficult to justify.
Yeah, maybe we need some compulsory measures, and we have actually a reaction on Facebook. So Theo wrote that should we fix obligatory quotas for every member state to deal with a certain number of refugees? So is a compulsory burden sharing needed? No, Mrs. Keller.
Compulsory, absolute. I'm always talking about responsibility because I believe a person is not a burden, but it is indeed a responsibility. So yes, we need to have a mandatory solidarity mechanism for dealing with asylum claims.
And Mr. Kirkhope?
No, I mean, I disagree on that. As I said, I think that we need to do far more to...
so why you disagree with compulsory quotas?
Well, because I think, first of all, I mean, I don't like the idea of allocating specific numbers to certain countries, whether or not those countries have any relevance as far as the asylum seekers are concerned. Yes, they may be safe, but they've already been in a safe country, and that is under the UN rules anyway, the place where they should be granted or not granted asylum. So it seems to me once you start moving people around Europe, I don't like the context of that. I don't like the history of it. I just don't like it. Just because a certain country is going to take a certain number, if they don't have enough, then more people are shot. People are people. They are not literally just sort of units on a piece of paper. And I'm sorry, but you know, asylum is such a precious thing. It should only be granted to those who justify it and justify it under the UN. No more. Other people who come into Europe or arrive in Europe are getting muddled in with this. People who are trafficked into Europe by criminals is something I feel very strongly about. And I think that we have to differentiate between these different groups of people. And if we don't do that, then I think we're letting the people down themselves.
Yeah, but maybe then if we don't have any compulsory quotas, maybe there are some countries such as Greece or Spain, for example, who need maybe more funds to deal with these migrants. Yes. And actually we have one question from our Greek partner, from Euranet Plus network Greek partner, Stavros Samoulidis from Sky Radio. We listen to him.
Do you think that in a country like Greece, which is almost in bankruptcy, there should be more European funds in order to deal, as Greece is also a country of first arrival, with all these refugees and help build the adequate structures and institutions to deal with the asylum demands and help them after push them into other European countries?
So Mr. Kirkhope, you disagree with compulsory quotas, so if some countries need more funds to deal with these refugees.
Yes, my group, I mean, I, as our spokesman in our group, have been arguing that actually I have no argument against providing more resources to those countries that actually have got this frontline responsibility. Whether those resources are paid directly to the country, whether they are in return for improving the quality of reception and so on, whatever it is, I'm in favour of that actually. I think that is a better approach because I think the other approach is, as I say, to move people around, which I don't want to see. I'd rather that we did actually help with more resources to those frontline, Spain, Italy, Malta and Greece.
Mrs. Keller, do you agree with this, giving more funds instead of just being more solidary and between each of us?
I think we need both, but we also absolutely need the funds allocated in Greece for the sensible things, because in the past the European Union has been funding return centres where people have been stuck for 18 months and more without ever being returned to anywhere. And that is a wrong priority of Europe, but it was a wrong priority in the past in Greece. And now we see also really weird things. For example, Greece is being forced to refurbish planes to use for border control, money that Greece does not have, instead of giving money so that reception centres could, for example, be built.
But compulsory quotas, do you agree? Do you think it's really...
Yes, I agree very much with compulsory quotas, but I also think that people shouldn't be moved around needlessly, in the sense that you should put people there where they want to go, where they have family, where they speak the language, because that will also prevent people from having to move around irregularly after they've been granted asylum in between.
The problem is, of course, these two things don't quite match. My feeling very strongly is that in all these respects we need to move fairly quickly. I think speed is equally important. I agree with you that people are confined often to camps or some kind of facilities for long periods of time while people decide what to do about them. they ought to have their cases dealt with as quickly as possible at the place of entry into the EU. If they have a good case for asylum, then that can be dealt with quickly. If they have no case whatsoever and they fall back on the immigration rules, then either they can comply with the rules or they'll have to be returned to their country of origin. But that's something, again, that could be done quickly. Other countries in the world outside of Europe do it quickly, much quicker than we do, and they do it with high standards, and it seems to me also they do it with full respect of the people concerned.
Then we can move forward to legal immigration. As Jean-Claude Juncker said during the debate, he was in favor, actually, of legal immigration, which is a bit opposite to the leader of the European People's Party, Mr. Weber. But anyway, we have got one recorded question of our German partners, IMS Radio, Claudia Knopke. We listen to her.
My question is, I've heard that most of the refugees who try to reach Europe are fairly good educated and skilled. They are coming mostly from the middle class in their countries. And because of that, wouldn't it be a possibility to use these resources and offer them a possibility for legal immigration with local points of contact, where the people would have the possibility to apply somehow for immigration to the EU?
Mrs. Keller?
Well, I think there's two different things. We need absolutely legal possibilities for labour migration. I'm very much in favour of that. But the other thing is asylum seekers who are also currently having the problem that there is no way for them to legally and safely enter the European Union. Two very different problems that need to be addressed urgently, because people do have to take currently the dangerous route over the Mediterranean because they have no chance to applying for asylum in a legal and a safe way.
Maybe not the issue, maybe you're providing them a humanitarian visa.
That is one of the different solutions that we propose that will be of benefit for some refugees in order to, they will ask for a visa that will help them to get to the EU and apply for asylum here. Other issues are resettlement programs, like we should have more for Syrians, and humanitarian corridors is another solution. But yes, this is a package solution, and we need to get refugees to be able to ask for protection without risking their lives again.
Would you agree with humanitarian visas, Mr.
Yeah, but that question really was about people who would go, in my view, through the normal immigration process. If they are, as is described, people with skills who simply want to emigrate to the European Union, there are plenty of ways in which they can do that in the countries of origin itself, with our embassies and so on. What we have been looking at is a dysfunctional set of states, particularly bordering the Mediterranean, where a lot of people actually are getting mixed up into all kinds of different categories that are not being differently dealt with and can't be necessarily in that atmosphere. So I think we also have to be very proactive, going back over into those states and dealing with the systems that exist there in some way.
So the last words from you both, maybe what are you expecting now for the following weeks?
Unfortunately, not much. I have to say, from my point of view, the Council was a big disappointment. They did not achieve anything that I would have expected, like a more rescue at sea. They want to put a bit more money into Triton, which is, not really helpful as long as you don't increase the area of operation of this Frontex mission. So I'm afraid nothing much will come out of it, and we will even see more tragedies, and that is a disgrace because we all have different proposals on the table. We know what to do, but there's no political will to do it.
Well, I agree a priority is a humanitarian effort, and I'm a little more optimistic than my colleague about this. I think this plan was a comprehensive plan, but the big question will be, is it going to be delivered? I mean, plans are plans. I'd like to see it delivered, and I'll make a judgment then in a little while. In the meantime, though, there are quite a lot of people still setting out in dangerous conditions, and I think that we need to be concerned primarily about that.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for coming. And thank you, all of you, for watching us. Bye.